Okay, it's ready. We can start.
Of
Hello,
course.
my name is Polina. I work at Active Bulgarian Society, and we actively take part in the Blue Generation project, which aims to attract young people to pursue a career in the blue economy. And to do that, we gather different experts from economy, marine biology, and we ask them about their career, the skills that people will need to pursue a career in the blue economy. And
Mhm.
today I'm here with Professor Evgin. Could you start by introducing yourself?
Yes, my name is Ceyhun Ergin. I'm a professor of economics at the American University in Bulgaria, in Blagoevgrad. So my actually research interests are primarily in macroeconomics and economic policy. I haven't done much research on blue economy, to be honest. I have done some research on sustainable development and on economics of sustainability, which is a related theme, as you can imagine, but not particularly on blue economy. But I very much follow news developments in regard to blue economy. I'm originally from Turkey. Turkey also has a great potential, actually, as a neighboring country to Bulgaria in blue economy, and Bulgaria has also a great potential. Maybe in the future, this interview is also going to be the first step in my a rising research interest in the economic aspects of the blue economy. We'll see.
Okay, that's great. So, could you tell us a bit more about your education and your career and what had led you to what you're doing today?
Of course. So I got my BA degree, my bachelor's degree, back in Turkey in a public university, Bosphorus University, in 2005. And then I went to PhD to the United States for a PhD study at the University of Minnesota. And then I got my PhD in 2010 from the University of Minnesota. Again, my PhD thesis was primarily on macroeconomics. And then since I got my PhD, I went back to Turkey and I worked at my alma mater at Bosphorus University for several years. I got I got first of all a position of assistant professor and then associate professor, then professor. But in the meantime, in 2014 and then in between 2018 and 2020, actually 2021, I worked in different institutions in the United States. First at Boston University in Boston, and then at Columbia University in New York City. And I directed a master's program there at Columbia. Then I decided to come back to either to my home or somewhere close to my home. And then there was this opportunity by the American University in Bulgaria. There was an open position in macro, and I applied, and then here I am. So and my research, I have published a significant number of papers in the past. Most of them are actually in macro, but of course at the intersection of macro and other issues. Like, for example, I have papers in sustainable development, as I said. I have papers in economics of informal sector, informality. I have papers on political economics, growth and development, and themes alike. And at the UBG, I also primarily teach macro, required macro courses at the principles and intermediate level, as well as some elective courses in economics of the pandemic, for example, or public policy.
Okay, that's great. So, do you include some of your research and knowledge in your lectures? Do you include things about sustainability and the blue economy in your lectures? Or
Yes, actually, in the past, not at the UBG, but in the past, I have taught several courses on growth and development in different institutions at Boston University, at Columbia, at Bosphorus University. Maybe next year I can also teach a similar course at the ABG. And in a growth and development course, of course, you have to spend some time on sustainability and particularly on sustainable development, because economies grow. Generally, growth is actually a recent phenomenon. It has started after Industrial Revolution, around late 18th, early 19th century. But since then, most of the economies grow. But when they grow, they also pollute the environment. They also deplete resources, etc., etc. So then, basically the key question now in the 21st century is whether countries will be able to grow in a sustainable way. And sustainability basically incorporates issues, first of all, with respect to environment. and with respect to availability of resources or continuity of resources. And then, of course, also it also has some other aspects in terms of health and education and some social issues. And of course, I incorporate those discussions in my growth and development course, for example, because, without sustainability, growth definitely will have a limit because you are going to deplete all the resources. So then you will have zero growth eventually. So therefore, we have to find, as human beings, as countries, as nations, we have to find ways to grow in a sustainable way. Yes, growth is very much necessary in order to create jobs, in order to feed people, in order to educate people, in order to provide, rising living standards for humans. But it has some limits if you deplete all the resources. So therefore, we have to find ways to grow in a sustainable way. And that brings us to the discussions of sustainability and also, to some extent, blue economy and maybe green economy.
Yeah, that's great. I like that you incorporate such topics in your lectures. So I can see that you're concerned about sustainability. What consequences do you expect that we will see, for example, in 10 or 20 years? And what adjustments do we need to take, in your opinion, to kind of prevent these consequences?
So first of all, if we don't change things, we are going to deplete resources, or with all the global warming and all these unfortunately adverse developments, we are going to suffer for sure. That's for sure. Because I started with this because unfortunately I see that, I noticed that in social media, in media, all around, some people still do not believe in that. Like, for example, there are still people there who do not believe in the reality of global warming. Or rising temperatures, and then the effect of all these rising temperatures, and therefore the necessity of doing something. For example, it could be reducing carbon emissions or something else, but they don't accept the necessity of that. So therefore, first of all, we have to accept that. Unfortunately, there are a bunch of international institutions, including NGOs, but also to some extent some governmental organizations, that accept that and that are trying to do something about that. Like, actually, that's actually, I think, how we are doing this interview, thanks to maybe a grant that you may have received from somewhere, from either a governmental organization or from a non-governmental organization. So therefore, we have to do something. We have to change things. That's the starting point, of course. And then we also have to promote that it is possible to grow in a sustainable way. Because, like, you cannot say, like, for example, there is this stream of literature in economics. You must have heard about that. It is called degrowth literature. Degrowth, which is basically arguing that economic growth should not be the focus of the policy making, should not be the ultimate purpose of the policy making. And of course, they have good intentions, because they say, growth should not be the focus because it depletes resources, it is harmful for the environment, etc., etc. But you cannot win many people with that argument, because without growth, then a lot of people will suffer. Because we see, when countries don't grow, when countries' economies are not doing well, then people lose their jobs. Children cannot go to school. People cannot get enough healthcare that they need. There is a rising inequality, bunch of other issues, which is also not good for people. And of course, also environments can also be adversely affected by the absence of growth, because growth also brings new technologies which we can use later on, maybe hopefully, to save the environment, to save the oceans, to save the water resources or whatever. So therefore, we need growth. But then, so that's why I'm not a firm believer of this degrowth, so to speak, stream of literature, even though I really have a lot of respect for those guys. But then the thing is, we have to basically show people that it is possible to continue with the growth, maybe not at a very extraordinary rate, but it is possible to keep the growth in a sustainable way. So in a sense, we should show people, we should maybe, in terms of academic research and then in terms of policy making, we should convince people that we are still in favor of growth. However, we should do it in a sustainable way. Otherwise, we will have zero growth at some point. Because if all the resources are depleted, then, for example, let's say if some resource is depleted, then you can't produce anything in that sector. Let's say if you overfish and then there is no more fish in Black Sea, then the fishing sector, the fishery sector is going to die, obviously, right? So there's going to be zero growth eventually. That sector is going to die. Therefore, we have to show that it is possible to grow in a sustainable way.
Okay, moving a little bit away from sustainability, how important is the cross-disciplinary collaboration in realizing the potential of the blue economy? And how can different sectors work together effectively to not have such scary consequences?
Of course, there's a huge potential of interdisciplinary research and interdisciplinary collaboration between sectors in the case of blue economy. For example, I can give as an example a potential collaboration between the fishery sector and tourism sector. Both are part of the, to some extent, part of the blue economy, because, you need to have clean waters, clean sea, especially if you are working on the summer tourism. And at the same time, for the fishery sector, the cleanliness of water is also important, because then you have more fish. So in that sense, yes, so there is a huge need for collaboration in the real sectors. And that collaboration can also be, of course, facilitated by the governments very much, because I don't think that it's very easy that these two sectors, for example, or some other sectors as well, come together on their own and start doing some collaboration. We need a facilitator, and that facilitator can be the government, for example. And of course, we academics can also be part of the story. We also can help. Like you told me, like in the beginning of the interview, that you also have interviewed a marine biology or someone else, maybe, I don't know, maybe someone from the fishery sector, someone from the tourism sector, or someone doing research on tourism or whatever. So, and also academics like me. And then maybe, for example, we should come together and explore ways where we can promote the concept of blue economy and do something concrete about the blue economy that affects all the sectors, that affects the whole economy. And that's why I really find your project and your initiative quite useful, because hopefully it will be watched by many people, and then it will basically be a starting point for some future activities in Bulgaria, in the European Union, or in the world actually as a whole.
Yes, that would actually be great. That's the point of every interview we make. So since you're from Turkey, and we know that the Balkans, Turkey, Greece, Bulgaria, they all have great marine tourism. So can you tell us a bit more about that? Are there any job opportunities open? Yes, is there funding in this sector?
Yes, of course. So there is a huge potential. So I think, like, I really love Balkans, by the way. I really like the Balkan geography. Not only the coast, but also the inland geography. But of course, today's main focus is on the coast, I understand. But so I really like the geography in Balkans, in Bulgaria, in Greece, in I don't know, Albania, Montenegro, Kosovo, Macedonia, North Macedonia, Romania, Turkey. So the geography is actually we are really, like, I think, very lucky, like, because we were born in the region. But we also have to take good care of the region. To also pass it to the future generations, and also to basically continue living in that region, so that our future generations continue living in that region in a sustainable way. In that case, of course, there are huge opportunities. Of course, the first sector that comes to everyone's mind in the case of blue economy is always tourism, because it's really a big sector, especially in those countries. In Bulgaria, in Greece especially, it's very big. In Bulgaria, it is rising. In Turkey, it is also very much rising in the last 25, 30 years or so. Because also, like, not everyone is that lucky. Like, not people living in Northern Europe, for example, are begging for such a climate, are begging for such a seashore, for example. And there's even though Bulgaria, of course, like, relatively somewhat more unlucky compared to Greece and Turkey, it is getting luckier and luckier, because the thing is, it's I think a petty thing to say, but with the global warming, the Bulgarian coast is also getting more and more similar to the Aegean coast of Greece and Turkey. Maybe, like, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, it was somewhat more difficult to think of Varna, Burgas region as the coastal resort, even though, like, in 19th century there were some developments, of course, to that direction. Nowadays it's getting, in a sense, more and more suitable for such activities. And I traveled through all the region from Varna to Burgaz, and it's like the sunny beach, etc. So it's really like with all the culture and historical, all this sort of history behind it, and the cuisine, and all these developments. These are really incredible, and of course, there's a huge potential, especially for Bulgaria in that regard. Bulgaria, as far as I understand, of course, I am not an expert on the Bulgarian economy, to be honest, but as far as I understand, as far as I read, as far as I evaluate individually, what I see is that Bulgaria, of course, has not reached its full potential in tourism or its full potential in blue economy. It's still actually, there's a still long way to go. But that's actually not a bad thing in itself, because maybe Greece has already reached its potential. Turkey already reached its potential. So there is not much, to do there, maybe. But Bulgaria has huge potential. So, and of course, that potential also means a lot of jobs. And also tourism is not like, when we talk about tourism, it's not only being employed in the tourism sector, because the tourism has also a lot of interlinkages. Like, if you have a hotel, you are serving food, and therefore you need to buy food from the agriculture workers. Or, I don't know, you need some drivers, or you need someone like, working in the airport, so that those guys are going to be basically hosting people when their planes land. And of course, tourists are not only coming to stay in the hotels, they also come to visit museums, to visit some areas, to shop. And again, all these sectors employ additional people. So in a sense, it has a huge potential for Bulgaria, which Bulgaria hasn't fully fulfilled yet, but which is also, again, as I said, not a bad thing in itself, because then there is still a lot of room to improve, and therefore a lot of room to develop. So that's what I can say about it.
Yes, that's great. There is room for improvement. So moving on more internationally, are you familiar with any international blue economy trends? And do you think these trends could shape the economy's development in the future?
So I see that, World Bank, and you know the World Bank, right? The World Bank is a very, important international institution, like, headquartered in the Washington, D.C. It is actually a bank of countries giving loans to countries for development-related projects, for infrastructure projects that also may include some investment in blue economy. And World Bank is taking, as far as I see, World Bank is taking this issue quite seriously. And they are writing reports for every particular member country, including Bulgaria. And actually, before the interview yesterday, I had the chance to read that report on Bulgaria. So they really spend a lot of time and a lot of effort to understand the needs for further improvement in the blue economy of their member countries, including Bulgaria, as well as in other countries. Then European Union is also supporting a lot of initiatives for investment in the blue economy. The Black Sea Development Bank, headquartered in Thessaloniki, I guess, in Greece, and Bulgaria is also a member as a Black Sea country, is also financing some initiatives, some projects in that direction. So all these, so to speak, big international institutions are promoting, are investing, are spending time and effort on this issue. Of course, blue economy still is a really, like, compared to other kinds of topics and themes that they are working on, relatively recent theme, I would say. Okay, so but again, it's not a bad thing in itself, because it again, similar to what I have said to your previous question, it means that still there is a huge potential, and that we can work on, and that we can work together, and maybe affect those international trends, as well as utilize those international trends in the context of our own countries, which also includes Bulgaria.
Okay, so in the future decades, we'll probably see improvement in this sector. So we talked about the problems with the sustainability. Do you know any other risks and challenges associated with the development of the blue economy, and how they might be addressed?
So first of all, the climate change and the global warming is a really serious threat, first of all. First and foremost, I would say, like, all these floods, for example, that Bulgaria, for example, had in early fall, and then all these anomalic weather conditions, they are basically telling us, the world is telling us that we need to address this, okay? And of course, there are some more unlucky countries like Maldives, for example, which are sinking below the ocean. And maybe, like, the maps of countries are going to change at some point because, the rising sea levels, okay? So these are really serious threats which are all related to global warming, and we have to do something about this. So this is first and foremost the most important threat. Maybe the second thing could be the ignorance of large bulks of population in different countries about those issues. That's why it's very important to increase awareness of the general public on this issue. And again, not like, we should not label our efforts in blue economy or green economy or fight against global warming or investments in sustainability. We should not label those efforts as a anti-growth activities. Instead, pro-growth activities, because as I said, if we don't do something, if the global warming continues like this, and if the resources are depleted like this, then we will have zero growth, and then a lot of people are going to lose their jobs. Because remember, for example, all the rhetoric also in some developed countries such as Germany, United Kingdom, in United States, like, for example, the rhetoric of the previous president Donald Trump is all like, all these global warming guys are gonna lose us like millions of jobs because we are gonna close all these factories that pollute the air, and then people are gonna lose their jobs, and then they are saying, oh, all these guys are lunatics. No, but so in a sense they are using that sort of anti-growth rhetoric in their favor, which is actually actually the opposite is true. Like, if we are not going to do something, then we are going to lose growth, then we are going to have huge unemployment, then we are going to be losing a lot of jobs. Then that's why we should maybe, like, increase our efforts to rephrase what we are doing, and what we aim to do, and then increase awareness of the general public in that direction.
Okay, thank you. So, what implications might the growth of the blue economy have on global scale? And probably particularly for developing nations or regions highly dependent on marine resources.
So marine resources are, again, depleted to an extreme scale. Of course, I for example, see a lot of anecdotal evidence from older generations in Turkey and in other countries as well about for example, availability of variety of fish, for example, and all other kinds of marine resources in the past, and compared to past and now. And again, there is a threat here, the threat of overfishing and uncontrollable fishing. And unfortunately, many governments are not really keen on enforcing laws and regulations that they have passed in their legislative branches or in their respectable agencies. They don't enforce those laws, unfortunately. So, and that's also an important issue in the sense, like, in the case of the availability of marine resources. And again, polluting the water, polluting the oceans, polluting the seas is also, again, a very serious issue. For example, we are talking about, making Bulgaria maybe a hot spot for tourism and with all the clean waters, but then there is this Donau collecting all the chemicals and trash of Europe and pouring it into Black Sea. And, then there is some international coordination, of course. Bulgaria cannot solve every problem alone, even, problems that are affecting its own blue economy. Therefore, very much coordination is very much needed in that regard. Coordination is also needed in the fight against global warming. Coordination is also very much needed. International global coordination is also very much needed in promoting blue economy and so that we again have a sustainable future ahead of us.
Of course. So, what is your advice to young people who would like to work in the field of economy or the blue economy specifically?
First of all, they should really inform themselves. Like they should really learn a lot about those issues. Not only relying on a single source, not only relying on some, pieces of information that they may have seen in social media, but actually going to the actual sources and inform themselves about, global warming. Like again, they shouldn't also believe in me. They should go and check themselves, like, what the true information there is. So they should look at the scientific articles or, the communication of these scientific articles to the general public to understand global warming, to understand sustainability, to understand the blue economy. They should, inform themselves. That's the starting point. And then once they inform themselves, once they have enough knowledge about those issues, then they can start having opinions about that. And because in Turkish, we have a saying, like, one should not have an opinion without having the knowledge first. So you should first have the knowledge, and then you should form an opinion based on that knowledge. So then they should have an opinion themselves, and then they should start acting. Maybe being part of an organization like yours, or part of a project like yours, or maybe even, like, even if they don't do it professionally, I don't know, in their lives, trying to create some initiatives in their own individual lives, trying to create some initiatives, or trying to pass the information to their relatives, to their parents, grandparents. So I think that should be the starting point of the young generation. Of course, not everyone should work. Like, I'm not saying that everyone should do some research work on blue economy. Everyone should do a research work on sustainability. No, of course, there are a bunch of other jobs here as well. But at least they should inform themselves. Then they should have an opinion, and then they should pass this information and their opinions to their to people surrounding them.
Okay, how about people that would like to do it more professionally? Do you have anything from your own experience, from your own career, as advice?
So I think if they want to do it professionally, of course, we have a bunch of positions in several different fields where you can work on aspects related to blue economy, aspects related to sustainability. Like, you can do it in economics, you can do it in political science, you can do it in law, you can do it in science disciplines such as biology, chemistry, even engineering, maybe. So, like, if you want to have an engineering career, but at the same time also interested in these issues, then maybe in your engineering career, you may want to be active in projects where you are developing technologies addressing some of these issues. Or if you want to be an economist, but at the same time concerned with those issues and want to do something about them, then maybe you can do research about some economic aspects of this. For example, I can give 2 examples from my own research, actually 3 examples. I have published 2 papers on issues related to sustainability, and then right now we are working on the 3rd paper. In one of them, so the title of the first paper is Informality, a Barrier to Sustainable Development. So in the paper, for example, we show that the presence of an informal sector, which is actually very prevalent in Bulgaria as well, in Turkey as well, in Greece as well, is actually a barrier to sustainable development. And we actually, with all the technical details, some statistical analysis, we show that what kind of a barrier it is. Another paper, military spending. So is military spending a barrier to sustainable development? And in that paper, again, we show that if countries spend a lot towards military, then again, which it is going to be detrimental for several sustainable development indicators that we use in our statistical analysis. So this is the 2nd paper that we have published. And now we are working on the 3rd paper, which examines the relationship. It's not finished yet, but it examines the relationship between tourism and sustainable development. And that the relationship is different in developed and developing countries, for example, is our main finding. Seems to be our main finding for now. So again, like as an economist, for example, you can work on issues like this in similar projects like this one, like the ones that I have exemplified. Again, but in other disciplines, as I said, political science, sociology, anthropology, of course, there are a bunch of other questions that I am not aware of right now, maybe, but that you can find and work on.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. So probably, I don't know, is there anything else that you would like to add to the interview?
I really love, what you are doing, really, I to be honest, and to increase awareness on this issue. that I even, like, before the interview was not 100% aware of. And hopefully more people will look into these issues, will read about those issues, and hopefully more people will do something about those issues in the near future. Because otherwise, as I said, right now the direction that we are going to is not really very well, I would say, because we are depleting resources, and the world is getting more and more it's in a sense, quote unquote, dying, so to speak. And then, of course, we will have nothing to talk about. Nothing to talk about the economy, nothing to talk about engineering, nothing to talk about any technological development. So therefore, we have to do something, and therefore we have to act, and we have to act now. And hopefully your initiative is going to be promoting further acts and developments in that direction.
Yes, that would be great. So we end the interview with really positive look into the future. Thank you so much, Professor. It was a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you. Likewise.
Yeah. See you. Goodbye.
Bye bye.